what's up, everybody? Welcome to a Thirsty Thursday edition of The Sweats, presented by DraftKings. I'm Emerson Lancia. This young lady is Jessie Cofield. Listen, we're going to talk baseball because there's a big, beefy three-game main slate to discuss. But first things first, happy Victor Wembanyama Day to all who celebrate. Wemby, we love him.
Yeah, we love him.
We love him here at DraftKings.
Wemby fans.
Big Wemby fans.
Yeah. So the 2023 NBA draft has finally arrived, as
Yeah.
Emerson so eloquently put. It will be remembered because of the astonishing French prospects.
Very tall and lanky.
And a loaded top 10 that our analysts have been raving about for years.
Yeah.
For years.
So this is the draft order tonight. Top 14, the lottery, if you will. Those analysts you're referring to, guys like DK's Jeff Pratt, Nick Fryer and his attitude, and DK Nation's Chinmay Vaidya. So before we dive into the madness of tonight, gentlemen, how about the madness of last night?
Ooh.
The trade. Oh, look at the grin on Pratt's face. The
He's
trade
gonna
for
throw up. He's so excited.
the trade for Kristaps Porzingis was off. Then it was back on again, which brought with it the end of an era in Boston as the Celtics shipped Marcus Smart off to Memphis. Gallinari, rest in peace, before he even suited up in a single game for Boston, for the Celtics.
Bye.
He's been shipped off to Washington, among others. We have the draft details for you. And Boston pulling in a couple first-round picks as well, including one tonight. So, Jeff, as a hardcore Celtics fan, one who struggles to present unbiased opinions, you gain Porzingis, however you lose Smart. How much better or worse do these moves make Boston?
They make them better. And I appreciate that intro, Emerson. I woke up to a very nice text from you as well saying, I bet you're really sad. I can't wait to see your tears on the show later today. So I feel like I've said this a couple times now, but there are no tears here. No tears here from me. And the last time I said it was actually to Nick as well. And tears may have happened later on in that series for the Celtics. But this time around, I have a lot of respect for what Marcus Smart brought to the Celtics in gratitude. Obviously, incredible defensive player. He defined this team. He was the heart and soul of the team for a long time. But your shelf life in the NBA is really short for players, coaches, GMs, executives, etc. And he was the leader of the locker room for 7 years, and the Celtics couldn't get it done. So at that point, it's just time to move on, in my opinion. So I had actually been in the Marcus Smart trade camp for about a year and a half now. Not necessarily have to move him out, but for the right piece. And I think this is the right piece. Kristaps Porzingis is a significant talent upgrade over him. And then you get 2 first-round picks for Marcus Smart. So while you can be nostalgic about what he brought to the team throughout his tenure in Boston, this is objectively a fantastic trade package for Brad Stevens. He's done nothing but make very good moves so far as the president of basketball operations for the Celtics. Porzingis fits this team better.
Okay.
He's a much better offensive player. This is a good pickup for Boston.
More injury prone than you as well, with your injured hamstring after moving your microwave from your bedroom to the kitchen.
Wow.
I've seen some fans on Twitter here, Nick, say Marcus Smart is the team's identity. But you know what? They need a new one because we've seen what's gone down in the postseason the last few years. Can't finish the job. Which of these 3 teams, Mr. Fryer, receives your highest mark, your highest grade?
I went since when were the Celtics, when it was ever their identity, making the postseason and not getting a ring at any point during that stretch. So if that's what you think about the Celtics identity, then I think you need to rethink things as a Celtics fan. I think the Celtics get the best grade here. It's an interesting move for the Grizzlies because obviously they are in such flux. As for the Wizards, I mean, okay, great. Like, you move on. You got Gallinari. You got Muscala. Awesome. Good for you. When it comes to the Celtics standpoint, though, I know you and I talked about this on the slate yesterday, Emerson, the highest rated edition of the slate. I didn't like the move as much when you got rid of Malcolm Brogdon. I know there's all these concerns about his injury. That's always going to be the case with him in some capacity. But Jeff kind of hinted at it, and then you bring up the identity. With Marcus Smart, sure, there's been a lot of good things. But when you think about Marcus Smart, he's known for making some questionable choices, but also making winning plays. You now have a guy already who makes winning plays and doesn't make a whole lot of questionable choices in Derek White, who is also an all defensive NBA guard. So you have that in the mix now. Then you can go and add some depth at big. I like Brogdon a lot. I understand the concerns about his injuries, but if that's something that Celtics can manage early on in the season, maybe not play him at all early in the season, as long as you have him for the postseason, it doesn't matter. And now you had a guy who can help protect the rim and block shots, a guy who's a good offensive player, and just another big body where Robert Williams is good, but this guy's more mobile than him, and obviously Al Horford's not getting any younger, so it helps at the big position. I think this is has gone from a B move when you were trading Brogdon to a definitive B plus move for me.
Okay, so Chinmay, where do you sit on this? Celtics tied now with Denver, atop the NBA title board on the DraftKings Sportsbook, plus 475 to win the whole damn thing next season. Do you agree?
I don't know if I agree with that, just because the way the East could shape out, given how the moves would work out in free agency, the Bucks are still a threat. I still believe that if James Harden comes back and the 76ers make some moves around the fringes, they're a threat. And we can't discount a team like the Miami Heat that just made a run to the finals as the number 8 seed. But I think for Celtics fans, and I don't know, how Celtics fans are going to take this, but I think Boston overvalued Marcus Smart for what he did on the floor. The Defensive Player of the Year award, that's a little bit questionable for a guard, given the criteria for a Defensive Player of the Year award. And frankly, Marcus Smart's offense was too inconsistent for the Celtics to count on in the postseason. So what they did here is not only did they get more versatile with Porzingis, who's coming off a career season, by the way, with the Wizards. If he can stay healthy, he gives them much more diversity offensively while also offering more rim protection defensively. So you can keep that floor spacing with Al Horford. You don't have to play Al Horford and Robert Williams together to get that rim protection. You can get it with Porzingis and Horford, still maintaining your floor spacing. And at the same time, you get a better three-point shooter on the floor, a more consistent three-point shooter on the floor in either Derek White or Malcolm Brogdon, depending on how they deploy those guards. Also, the Celtics picked up 2 first-round picks in this deal. One of them is going to be a late first-rounder tonight in the NBA draft, and you can get a quality player at 25. You're not going to get a guy like a Draymond Green or a Nikola Jokic. Those kinds of guys hit an absolute home run. But you can get great players late in the first round. That's not a thing that is uncommon. So I think this was a tremendous deal for Boston. Washington, again, you don't get the draft picks, but I think that you achieve the objective of tearing down the team and shedding some long-term salary. And the Grizzlies, I don't know what they're going to do when Ja Morant comes back from his suspension, because this was a plug and play for 25 games with Morant suspended. And when he comes back, I don't know how they're going to fit him and Smart, because the Grizzlies are going to slowly realize what the Celtics realized, is that Marcus Smart offensively is just too inconsistent to deploy as a second guard. He can be a lead point guard, but when you have 2 guards there, it's going to be tough to play him.
Man, y'all know it too. The Grizzlies are going to go like 21-4 in those 25 games without Ja. It's going to be something insane like that, like we saw last year.
Well, you guys all have slightly different opinions about that, but for tonight, pretty much a consensus about the top 3 for the draft here. Wemby undoubtedly going first, we know that. Then the argument sort of becomes like a position of need versus skill. All right, guys, that's coming into play here. Charlotte picking second between point guard Scoot Henderson, Alabama wing Brandon Miller. So, Nick, what's your take? How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I know we've been talking all about how it should be Brandon Miller going at number 2 and then Scoot going at number 3, assuming that Charlotte and Portland stay in those spots. But the question mark for me right now is, all right, is Charlotte necessarily going to stay there? Because I know we've talked about it, how maybe the Pelicans try and potentially move up to that spot. And for me, we look at the betting market here. You can't really go and bet Scoot to go number 3. You can't go and bet Miller to bet number 2. There's not a whole lot of value there. But when you look at those 2 and you flip-flop them, they're both plus 250 on DraftKings Sportsbook. And then if you go for the exact order of the top 3, Wemby, Scoot, and Miller at plus 250, I think that's a little bit, those plays are a little bit more appealing for me right now, just because it feels like there's more uncertainty when it comes to Charlotte, whether or not they're going to move on from this play, whether or not they draft Scoot so that way they can try and move him. So there's more question marks now. I mean, this is just how the NBA is, right? So I'm leaning more so right now to go with one of those 3 plays, not the expected order of Wemby, Miller, and then Scoot.
Okay, Chinmay, what would you do if you were the Hornets?
So I mentioned this last week on the mock draft that the Hornets ownership situation was in a little bit of limbo, and that actually transpired a lot quicker than many people expected. Now, Michael Jordan is staying on with a minority ownership stake, but anytime you get a new ownership, there's a chance that things could really be shaken up. And the question for me, really, the Hornets is, would you pay LaMelo Ball that big max contract or whatever super max contract that he's eligible for? Do you believe that he's that franchise player that can take you all the way to where you want to go, which is ultimately a championship? And if you don't believe that, then Scoot Henderson might be the guy to take here, and you deal LaMelo Ball. And I don't think the Hornets are going to do that. I think they do believe in LaMelo Ball. So I would go with Brandon Miller as the number 2 pick. He had some very questionable quotes in the last few days regarding the GOAT and regarding his views of Michael Jordan.
Paul George.
But maybe that's what he wants. Maybe he wants Michael Jordan to be fired up and see what he can bring to the Hornets. So I would go Brandon Miller, and I'd go Wembanyama, Miller, Henderson as the exact order. There's not a lot of value on the DK Sportsbook, so maybe you throw a little sprinkle here and there on, Scoot Henderson to go number 2 overall, and Wemby, Henderson, and Miller as the exact order. But I do think it'll be Miller and Henderson at 2 and 3.
And did you see that despite selling the team, MJ still has final say, too, on the Hornets' number 2 pick, which seems like an interesting idea.
Weird.
Old strategy, Cotton. We'll see if it pays off for him.
Yeah, weird. Jeff, Chinmay just mentioned it. Is the top 3 picks in exact order bet maybe in play for you?
It might be. I think it's probably the most logical play, and I agree with everything both of these guys have said. I think that it's going to be Wemby, Miller, and Scoot. And assuming it plays out like that, both of you, everyone here has alluded to it, I have a big problem with that, especially if I were a Charlotte Hornets fan. I would absolutely want to take Scoot second overall. I'm personally a big believer in his talent and taking talent over fit at the top of the draft. I understand what Chinmay was saying about going Brandon Miller. He fits better with LaMelo Ball. But when you have, who knows how many times you're going to get a top 3, top 5 pick in the draft. I am a firm believer that when you have that opportunity, you take the most talented player and you can figure it out later, whether that's eventually trading LaMelo Ball or figuring out if you can run both him and Scoot together. I think that would be my move. I have serious concerns about Brandon Miller's playmaking specifically translating to the league. And obviously, if it doesn't, then you're just looking at a high-level 3-and-D player, which isn't the worst thing in the world. But I'm saying that the ceiling is much higher for Scoot and the floor is much lower for Miller, in my opinion. And then moving on, I have no idea why the new majority ownership in Charlotte is letting Michael Jordan have the final say on this pick. Not only is he moving to a minority stake, but he also has a pretty horrible track record with evaluating talent and specifically making draft picks in these spots. So I disagree with the pick that will likely be made at number 2 overall tonight in Miller. I wish him the best. I hope he has a great career and proves me wrong. But I also disagree with the process that's going to be behind making that pick.
All right, good stuff. Thank you, guys. We're going to talk a lot more about tonight's draft, current odds on the DK Sportsbook with Julian Edlow when he joins us in a little bit here.
Yeah, but first, again, as soon as the Spurs snag that number 1 pick, like Wemby could have started scouting real estate there in San Antonio, immediately. And guess what? He just joined the Old Man and the 3 podcast to discuss being labeled the greatest prospect ever. All that pressure, I don't know.
You are in a position based on everything that, has been said about you, written about you, seen from you. You're in a position to be a generational player. And in my sort of current gig, I often have to compare players, and we talk about influences and we talk about role models. Kobe wanted to be Mike and LeBron had to be better than Mike. But in some ways, you are going to, and you kind of already have, completely broken the mold of what a player is. I go back to something that was, I don't know if I saw it on Twitter or in an article, but it's like if people did a create a player on 2K, or like if you asked a 6-year-old to draw a sketch of a basketball player, right, they would look like you, and they would have all the skill sets you have. Do you feel pressure around that notion?
No, I don't feel any pressure on my shoulders or what. And I think the reason is because I try to live free. I'm trying to be like a free mind at all times. And the way I play is just the way I truly want to play, and I've wanted to play my whole life. So it's just, this is me, and I'm trying to show my true personality on the court and just be myself.
So when someone says that you are the best prospect in a generation, the best prospect since LeBron, I believe one of my colleagues called you the best prospect ever in team sports. That just goes in one ear and out the other. There's no pressure from that.
Yeah, true. No pressure from that, because it's not like a reward when they say that.
Well, so that's very rare, especially for someone as young as you. Have you ever seen the movie Inception?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
The Christopher Nolan movie?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the central themes of this movie is that you need a totem, right? Yeah. And he takes the little spinny thing, which was his ex-wife's totem, takes it, and it's used to sort of gauge whether or not he's living in the dream world or living in reality. And we have seen this happen to a number of young athletes who lose, I think, a sense of reality, and they lose that grounding principle of their life. What is your totem?
What you just said about young players, this is something I've thought about a lot. And there's reasons to this, because I know I'm never gonna turn like this. Like, I know I'm never gonna lose a grasp of reality and just do something, because I know what I want. Like, I'm driven from the inside of my heart, and like nothing can put me out of my path. So I'm gonna make, like, I do everything I do everything I can, so I deserve what I get. And I think some players are really talented, physically or technically, really, really talented, but their mind isn't like as good as their body is. You know what I'm saying? So they get results, they get titles, they get they get drafted, whatever, but truly they don't deserve what they get, if they up afterwards. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. But going back to the totem thing, I don't want to harp on this, but going back to the totem thing, because I'm trying to understand this. Is it the game? Is it the competition? Is it this desire to win, to be great? Like, you talked about this drive that you've had, right? You're, as long as you can remember. I mean, you knew as a kid you wanted to be a professional basketball player. Is that the totem? Like, what is it about the game or the competition that you love?
It's my totem is, it's something bigger than basketball. It's just life. It's just accomplishing yourself inside this universe. And I always got, when I need motivation, when I need energy and I feel tired out, when I need a fight on the court and it's hard, I always remember I'm free in that universe. I do whatever I can, and I know what I want to do, and nothing's gonna stop me from doing it. And I always got that in mind. And it doesn't just stop to basketball. It's about life.
Jason,
well said.
Jason, he's reached enlightenment.
Nah, man. I'm not sure I'm really understood, because in French I know I can make myself understood, but in English sometimes I'm not.
No. You're understood. You're understood. It's very clear. It's very clear.
I wanted to ask you about growing up, just both the basketball competition in Le Chenet, but then also just even mentally when you started to reach this point, because you saying this, you haven't played a game in the NBA yet, but it's one of the more insightful things anyone has said on the show. We've done a lot of episodes. And so when you started to get that kind of self, measurement for yourself, because it takes people, sometimes their whole lives to reach that point. Like, it doesn't happen at your age very often.
You know what? I don't know. I can't really give you an answer, but I know I've always tried to be different, than other kids and other players. So I don't know. It's just me. Maybe I'm the only one like this. I don't know, but
you talking about being free in the universe. I wish I was free in the universe. I wish I was free in the universe.
Hey, not one, not two, but 3 baseball games on the main slate tonight. And listen, some pretty decent teams on said slate. We don't talk enough about how the Royals have been nearly or just as bad as the A's this season, but they are in action, visiting the Rays, the Pirates at the Marlins, the Mariners, America's team, 1A, Cincinnati, 1B, visiting the Yankees. Let's get after it now. Let's cover the bases with DraftKings contributors Gary and Thorne and Tanner Kern. Jesse Cofield with the first question of the segment.
Yeah, mini 3-game slate, so let's just roll through some DFS picks here. Tanner, need a DFS pitcher that you have to have in your lineup. Not a lot of options to choose from. Where are you going?
So I'm going to go with Domingo Germán at $6,900. When you look at Germán, he did get lit up in his last start against Boston, but this was his second straight game against them after shoving in his first start. When you look at him, he's been very good this season outside of the homers allowed. That's been one area where he has struggled, but his whip is just over 1 in 69 innings of work. He's doing about a strikeout per inning. He's got 2 quality starts in his past 3 games, so really been delivering there. He's allowed 11 homers on the mound, but the good thing for him tonight is the Mariners don't hit a lot of home runs. They're 21st in homers this season. They're 5th most in strikeouts, and they're also batting just .221 off righties. They haven't been getting the job done, and makes this price for Germán very appealing.
All right, Garion, we need a pitcher that you are rolling with on this mini 3-game slate. Who is it?
Yeah, I think my my big overarching sort of philosophy on this MLB slate is just Brian Wu hasn't really been caught up to in terms of his sportsbook pricing or his DFS pricing. He's just $6,200 on this slate. Granted, again, small slate. Someone's got to be cheap. But Wu has a 37.7% strikeout rate in his first 3 starts of the season. He's got a 16% swinging strike rate, so that really validates and backs up how good he has been at striking out batters. He was doing this in single A, he was doing this in double A, he was doing this in triple A. He is a strikeout pitcher. I just think Wu is in a great spot against the Yankees team that has just a 73 WRC plus in the month of June. We're basically just looking for someone to pair with Shane McClanahan, and I think Wu offers the highest amount of upside.
All right, Gary Bear, take us to second base now. Give me a dude swinging good wood right now. Your favorite DFS bat tonight.
Yeah, I think Taylor Walls is in a really nice spot. He has cooled off significantly, I will say, since the, everyone on the Rays is basically Ted Williams era of this season. But Taylor Walls is a switch hitter, which is going to come in handy tonight because you've got a situation where the Royals are going to open with a right-handed pitcher and then follow him up with a bulk pitcher that is left-handed. The lefty in question, Austin Cox, who has been hit around at AAA this season. He's got a 6.80 FIP, giving up 2.3 home runs per 9 in AAA. Don't think that's good. Then as a left-handed hitter, he's got a 250 ISO and a 168 WRC plus against Southpaws. He's just $4,500. I think that's a lot of value for someone who has exhibited this much power as a right-handed bat.
All right, who do you like tonight, Tanner?
Yeah, give me Randy Arozarena for $5,900, staying in the same game there. He's 11th in baseball in OPS at 907. He's been bat tonight, as Garen was saying there, and then it'll become a bullpen game. Claw's not been that good, 4.15 ERA, 1.45 whip in his time on the mound. So I like Arozarena to get after in that first at bat and then keep feasting off this bullpen. I would when I look at the Rays tonight, they should have a huge night. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for Arozarena to come through and have a good game.
All right, Tanner, let's mosey on over to the DK Sportsbook. I need a player prop for tonight's slate that you are eyeing.
So I like Domingo Germán to record a win at plus 180. When you look at him, he's only 4-4 this season, but he hasn't had a lot of offensive support from this Yankees team. So I can't look at the record too much here. My biggest fear with him, as I was saying earlier, is the home runs allowed. But the Mariners aren't hitting a lot of home runs, and they're not good enough to spray the ball around the field and score. Often solo shots too, so that's another reason to back Germán. When people get on base, he tends to come through with some big strikeouts. And again, this Mariners offense just has not found their groove, and it's time to say they're probably not going to find it this season as well. I also like the Yankees get to Brian Wu. I think the strikeout rate's there, but the numbers overall have not been perfect. So I think it's going to be a low scoring game. Yankees win 3-2, 3-1, 4-1 in that range. But that's going to mean Herman's going to get the win tonight.
All right. Player prop for tonight's slate, Gary, and what is it?
So I'll go back to Wu. This strikeout prop is 5.5 tonight. It was 5.5 in his last start as well, and he easily struck out 9 Chicago White Sox in less than 6 innings. I just think the sportsbook has yet to account for how elite a strikeout pitcher Brian Wu actually is. His strikeout prop should be set at 6.5. Like, he's not Spencer Strider yet, don't get me wrong, but when you look at just the pitchers available on this slate, he's got a better strikeout rate than Shane McClanahan, and McClanahan's strikeout prop is 7.5. So it really does give you a sense of the value of the unknown that you sort of still have with someone like Brian Wu. That strikeout prop last game was plus 100 to the over at 5.5. It is now minus 120, but they do have a 23% strikeout rate in the month of June. That is perfectly acceptable. Wu's going to rack up some strikeouts tonight. He only needs to pitch 5 innings, and he will definitely hit this number.
Let's continue to cover the bases. Gare Bear, take us home with your top game bet on your betting card tonight.
So I'm going to bet on the Pirates to win, which is a pretty bad strategy. They have lost 9 in a row. They are 1-10 in their last 11 games. The Pirates are who we thought they were.
Yeah.
But they've got their ace on the mound tonight. And while Mitch Keller has been beat up in 4 of his last 5 starts, he's still got some pretty good numbers for the season overall. He's got an expected ERA and a FIP basically hovering in that low 3-dot range. He's a good pitcher. Braxton Garrett, also a pretty good pitcher, but his expected ERA is about a run higher at 4.5. He's also left-handed, and Keller is right-handed. And if you just want to break down when these offenses have been in their best situations all season long, the Marlins have a 113 WRC plus against lefties. That drops all the way down to a 93 WRC plus against righties. Conversely, the Pirates, 89 WRC plus against right-handed pitching. That goes up to a 107 WRC plus against left-handed pitching. So it just seems like ace on the mound going up against a lefty. This is the ideal spot for the Pirates to win a game. I don't think the Marlins are that good either. And at plus 135, there's some nice value here.
All right, Tanner, what's the game bet you like tonight?
So I do like the Yankees to win tonight. I'm going to take a little pivot on that, though. Keep the Mariners under 3.5 for their team total. Seattle can't score. It's been that case for a while now. They've only scored 4 runs one time in their past 6 games, so they are not hitting the over on this prop very well. They don't hit righties very well either, batting just 221. Herman's a guy that can go 6 innings tonight, only give up 1 to 2 runs, and they have not been able to get to the Yankees bullpen throughout this series. New York has slowed them down consistently, and I think it's going to happen again tonight, especially if Herman can put together another quality start.
All right, Tanner, we got time for extra bases. Who's going yard tonight?
I really like Randy Arozarena to go yard at plus 450. When you look at him, 9 of his 14 homers have come off righties. 9 of his 14 homers have also come at home. Where the Rays will be tonight, when you look at Jose Cuas going to start the game, 4.15 ERA, 1.45 WHIP, 5 homers allowed in 30 innings. Probably only going to get 1 at-bat off him, but I do think he feasts off this entire pitching staff tonight. So I like Randy Arozarena for plus 450.
Gary, and who you going with?
Yeah, I mean, I also have Randy written down. I think that's my top one for a lot of the reasons that we just heard. I mean, he's got a 283 isolated power against left-handed pitching this season. If he gets 2 at-bats against Cox, he's got a really good shot of going deep. I'll also throw out Rodolfo Castro. I mentioned the Pirates hit lefties pretty well. The reason for that is Rodolfo Castro is an animal against left-handed pitching this season. Another one of those switch hitters who really has a dominant side, and that is the right-handed batter's box for Castro. His WRC plus hovering around 200 this season against left-handed pitching. So at plus 650, I think there's some nice value there that he can take Braxton Garrett deep.
Hey, Gary, and before you guys take off, just quick reaction to the big trade that went down that almost did not go down last night with Boston and Washington. 3-team deal. Who was the third one? Oh, it was Memphis. What'd you think, Gary, and who won?
Yeah, I think this was a better version of the trade for the Celtics. I think, the situation they had for the first reported trade where they were basically losing all of their depth for Kristaps Porzingis, that one you could kind of go back and forth on. But at this point, I think Marcus Smart, I think his time in Boston had sort of come to an end. I think you're starting to see some of that slippage on defense. Yeah, and the fact they got 2 first-round picks, I know they're late first-round picks, whatever, but still, you're just building capital. I think this is a really solid move for Boston. I saw that they moved into a tie, I think, for the NBA championship favorite odds this morning. I think that's justified. I think as currently constructed, if healthy, which, everyone has that caveat, they have arguably the best roster in the NBA.
Yeah, Tanner, before we came on here for this segment, you and Gary were both hot and bothered over those 2 first-round picks.
Boston dominated this trade when you look at it. Marcus Smart's a little over the hill. When you look at him, though, he is the emotional leader of this Celtics team, so that's something they have to figure out. I don't think you're going to get that same ability from Kristaps Porzingis, but Porzingis is a better basketball player, and you're getting 2 first-round picks. The Celtics dominated this trade. It's a Brad Stevens masterclass here, and looking forward to basketball season, especially with Porzingis now in the lineup for them.
All right, good stuff, fellas. Thank you so much. You are free to go. We're going to stick with basketball here because Chris Paul joined the Levitard dudes to talk about everything.
The best podcast.
Yeah, from his new book, Leaving Phoenix, his accomplishments, his tenure as the president of the NBA Players Association. They kind of get into everything, so let's take a look.
What do you regard as the most interesting parts of the book or your journey, or what it is you're trying to share with an audience that you don't have to share it with them?
Yeah, I think in the book I sort of talk about why I'm wired the way I am, and why I compete the way that I do, and I sort of explain like my foundation and my family. That's one thing. Some guys are a lot more open about things. Some guys are a little bit more closed off. Obviously, I know I'm in the public eye with a lot of things that happen, but I think I explain a lot about why I compete the way that I do and who I do it for and what keeps me sane, to tell you the truth.
Well, what does?
My family. My family. I'm blessed and fortunate. I got my wife, I got my 2 kids, I got uncles, aunts, cousins, my parents. I mean, my parents live in North Carolina, live in Winston-Salem. I just finished my 18th season. My parents still make more than half of my games every year. And so I'm sure that's probably not everybody's normal.
Well, I wonder how that one goes over, right? Because I've read all your comments, and you are, always a professional in public. You don't do the things that end up in headlines that make you or anyone look bad. But you come home, whenever it is you get the news of, well, I took Phoenix to the finals a couple years ago, and every team I go to wins a lot more when I get there. And my gratitude for that is they're shipping me off. They don't want me anymore. And you've said all the right things publicly about, well, business is cold, but I understand this is a business. But how does this one go over with your family?
Yeah, they ain't with it, but they also know the business too. My family, anybody who knows me, they know my family. They know my parents. My parents here in New York on this book tour with me. My parents actually talk to all the incoming rookies' parents every year for the last 18 years about what to expect from a parent's perspective. But I'm so blessed to seriously have people that also see the big picture, and so sometimes people try to take your kindness for weakness. You figure it out, and you just keep pushing.
What does "they ain't with it" mean?
What they ain't with it? Listen, if you don't have family and people that ride for you day in and day out, then, you know what I'm saying? Billy, talk to them. Tell them what it means.
I was going to say, what kind of question is that?
No, I know. I want specifics, though, of who's coming to him. I know what it means, but who's coming to him and saying, I can't believe
Dan knows what it means, but if the audience doesn't know what it means.
I can't believe Phoenix
You
did
sure
that.
about that?
No, you know what? It ain't that. I'm gonna tell you that you make trades and all this stuff like that. It's a business, man. I done literally seen everything that you could see in this league, right? From trades, and it's not like being traded or whatnot. I think the thing that always messes up any situation is the communication aspect. So,
is there any point you learned it, Chris, where because you didn't come into the league knowing, okay, it's a business. You expected the employer to value you, or you came in knowing that?
Well, then, I mean, you think about it. I got drafted when I was 19, 20 years old, right? I didn't know what to expect, which is why I ended up getting involved in the union and why I stayed involved in the union so long is, I mean, I'm a consumer too. I'm a fan. So once upon a time, I used to be the kid that see stuff come across to be like, man, how did this guy blow $20 million? You know? And then I came into this life and I got a chance to see what can happen and how people try to pull you here and pull you there. So you start to realize that it's tough when you're a kid that gets drafted and this is the highlight of your life. But now people want you to be the best basketball player that you can possibly be, but they also want you to help this person, help that person, and that person. So it's just it's a unique perspective.
So was there an age or a time that you learned it? Because if you come in not knowing and then you get on the treadmill and the treadmill is lopsided, you got to be great and it consumes all of you. Got to be great, got to get to the top. Everyone's trying to be the greatest. Where do you learn it? They're like, oh, that doesn't feel the way that I'd like to have a partnership with my employer in the age of player empowerment when I'm running the players union as well and I'm trying to make deals with these owners.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just that aspect of it. I was more so speaking of it from like players. That's why vets are important, right? Like I had PJ Brown when I came into the league, who sort of just taught me a little bit about finance here and there, right? Vets are important, teammates are important, relationships are important, and our league is so different now than it was when I first came into the league. You know, the way guys are involved in other businesses off the court and just the conversations, the camaraderie. I think something that was so big with me, Melo, D-Wade, and Braun, right? I'm sure y'all, the Banana Boat crew, whatever, right? What made that relationship so special, to tell you the truth, is because I got my brother, I got my homies that I grew up with that I talk to all the time, but there are some situations that they just will never understand. You know, I'm sure, Dan, you got some friends or whatnot that live sort of a similar lifestyle to you, but other people who don't, who when you explain things to them, it's just different, right? So those relationships are so important for you to have, especially when you're thrust into a limelight that you know, you don't really know anything about.
The name of the book is 61, Life Lessons from Papa on and off the court. What would you regard as the greatest challenge you had as president of the NBA Players Union? The greatest
which
one.
Man, I don't think you got enough time on this show today for all of that stuff. You know, I mean, we moved the union offices from Harlem to where they are now. Went through, I don't know, you almost got to ask me for me to remember.
Well, you just we'll do it next time when we have more time.
I didn't have moving being up there.
Yes, well, he's just
moving's a pain in the
That's actually very relatable.
He's going to the very beginning of this because he's explaining to you from the beginnings of these guys took over the business.
Wait, you were boxing stuff?
Chris, they're not about it.
Everything.
Chris, thank you. 61 Life Lessons from Papa on and off the court. We'll do it again in a longer form, sir. I really have admired your pioneering because you have that whole crew ended up changing the league. You guys being good at business ended up changing. I don't know where it is on your list of prides, but ended up changing the amount of power that players have, not only in that league, but in sports.
You know what, Dan? It's crazy. And I say this and I go is, aside from the power, because I know what the conversations be like. They'd be like, should players be able to do this or should they be able to say this or whatnot? But probably the coolest thing from my time at the union is we're the only sports league that has health insurance for retired players.
Yeah. See, that's one of the things that he did, and I don't know if I put it at the top of his list because he's got plenty of things to be proud of. Thank you again, Chris, for sharing the time with us, and thank you for writing the book and sharing the wisdoms in it.
Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
All right, and if I'm not mistaken, the #1 overall recruit coming into this year at Duke was Lively. Derek Lively, the big man, didn't have the best, just never really fit in, it seemed like, last year at Duke. You had a guy like Filipowski, who kind of commanded the ball as a big and was maybe just the better fit as a college basketball player with that program, however you want to say it. And Lively got slept on. But now we're in the NBA process. He's tall, he has athleticism, he moves down the floor, he can shoot it, but he does what a big man's supposed to do. I think like 10 at Dallas, 12 to OKC, who has a million picks, they can always use a home run. Like those spots would make sense to me. But how stunned would you be if, like, you just mentioned teams at 7 and 8 in Indy and Washington that want home runs? when you're talking about a number 1 overall recruit, like, could you see him going that high? Your thoughts on Lively in this draft, Jeff?
Listen, I mean, Lively to me, there just aren't many like him, right? He runs like a guard. He's long. He's athletic. He can put on weight. You know, like you look at his shoulders, and he's going to be able to put on weight. Yeah, I just remember, and I wasn't the only one there. The Duke Carolina game in Cameron, he dominated that game without scoring. I don't know how many points he had, 6 points, but he had like 9 blocks. Mm-hmm. He altered another like 10 shots. I saw him again 2 summers ago stand out there and make enough threes. Like, he's not going to shoot 40% from 3, but like, I think he can go out and make 33%, one out of 3 from 3 right now. And if you're a pick and pop, I mean, again, you just look at it right now. Like, if he can do some of that, there just aren't many guys that can do what he can do. He's a lob threat. Again, as he gets stronger, he could be a dominant player on the defensive end, and he can make some shots. So I think, again, Lively, you're buying low here. You got to look at him, especially if you're a team of need of some length up front and some athleticism up front.
All right, so Nick Smith, Derek Lively, not available yet in the prop market. Those are a couple of guys that we're saying maybe to take a look at. I'll let you go on this one, Jeff. We're assuming we'll get like a first-round market at some point. Who's a player that you think maybe the perception is that he won't go in the first round, that maybe jumps up into it? And who's a player maybe that you think slides, maybe even if you don't think out of the first round, who's a guy that you think slides that isn't, a top 10 pick, but slides down this draft board?
So one guy I think can get in the first round is Julian Phillips. Freshman at Tennessee, didn't play a ton, but man, does he look the part. He is your long, versatile wing. Like, it's what everybody wants. And if you're drafting him in the like late 20s, you're drafting him to basically stash him. He's going to G League, or he'll learn. To me, if you could somehow get him early in the second round, that would be unbelievable. But I think he's one of those upside guys that's not ready. But Rick Barnes just didn't utilize him the way I would have in terms of letting him play through his mistakes. Shoot. He can shoot, but he just didn't. So that'd be one that I think, to me, has a chance to go in the first round that not a lot of people do.
It's a big draft for Julian's, because I thought you were going to say Julian Strother, who can shoot it from Gonzaga, and like we said, it's a weak shooting draft.
Yeah, that's another one. Strother's kind of intriguing, but he's just never really put it all together. But he could be a piece at the next level. That's what Julian Strother would be. I'm trying to think of a guy that people have going in that first round.
Even if you, I don't want
Chris Murray.
Okay, yeah, I like that one. He's not his brother.
I just don't know if Chris. Like, I think Chris is going to be. People are going to move him up because of his brother, but he's not Keegan. He's just not.
Right.
He's not the shooter Keegan is. He's not the player Keegan is. Good player, but he's not that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he goes in the first round or not at the end of the day, but that's somebody. I'm trying to think of who else.
I don't even want to box you into it being a guy that slides out of the first round. It can be, maybe it's a guy that is 14, 15, 16 on mocks, and you think he goes 25. Like, anybody you think slides, you can go with.
I would say, to me, I like Cason Wallace. I'm kind of going through some of these guys right now.
Yeah.
Keontae George is the one. Keontae George is the one that I think most people are like differ on. Because he's kind of got a little bit of like a Brad Beal to his game a little bit. He's not an elite athlete, good size, kind of a combo-ish guard, more of a 2, but he can play with the ball in his hand some. He's fallen off on a lot of mock drafts. I still think he's got a super high upside as an offensive player. He was just atrocious defensively last year at Baylor as a freshman. Another guy, Jett Howard, was atrocious defensively at Michigan, but he's got length and he can shoot the ball, so he'll probably be okay. I think Keontae George is one to watch. Like, he's He's really intrigued. Kobe Buffkin, another one that shot up, that really didn't do anything first half of last year at Michigan and then came on late. But he looks like a pro. I mean, he's got pro measurables and the way he plays. So this is an intriguing draft. I mean, it really is like, it's more interesting in a lot of ways because the unknowns with a lot of these kids, whether it's they were in the G League, whether it's the Thompson twins or Leonard Miller, who didn't play in college, whether it's Keontae George and Nick Smith, Derek Lively, a lot of, like we said, highly recruited kids coming out of highly rated that really didn't play up to what we thought they would in college. So, I mean, Taylor Hendricks, who kind of slid under the radar. There's a lot of intriguing Buffkin, a lot of intriguing guys in this draft, and probably a lot of uncertainty.
You said hi to LeBron and AD briefly in Vegas, and you met Giannis right in Europe. Have you had much other experience with any guys in the league yet?
Like current players, like the stars? No, not really.
You've worked out with Tyrese, with Maxey?
Tyrese Maxey, yeah.
So
one time.
Is there anyone in particular you are excited to, just having grown up a fan, excited to play with, where you feel like you're going to get on the court with them and you might be like, oh, this is somebody I've been watching for a long time?
Yeah, I know it's gonna feel really special when I play against the top guys that I've been watching for my whole life, especially LeBron. The day I play against LeBron is gonna feel like so weird. The French guys is gonna be special to play against them too, Rudy, for example. But no, other than that, no, I don't have anyone I'm really looking forward to play against.
The other thing I was going to ask when you're talking about the putback three, we talked to Luka about this and we talked to Steph about this.
Really?
Not about you, but just about shit they did in practice.
Okay.
Where they've done stuff, Luka especially, where it's like, JJ would see this. He would do stuff in practice that was like 10 times crazier than he ever did in a game, and nobody filmed it. Did you ever have anything like that where you did something that was like, oh my God, I wish these guys were here. I wish the camera crew was here?
One time, believe it or not, but I was 14. I was 14, and when the ball is stuck on the rim, like when you shoot and it just sticks between the rim and the backboard.
The wedgie, the crotch shot.
Okay.
Crotch shot or wedgie.
Yeah. Well, I was with a coach back then, and like the practice was over, so I was just fucking around and we were just laughing. We were laughing, and I jumped and I tried to kick the ball, to kick it with my foot, and I touched it with my foot. The ball between the backboard and the rim.
I'm trying to understand them.
And I was 14.
The physiological dynamics of that. Did you flip around, or you just have that much flexibility?
What do you mean flip around? What do you mean?
Well, it's 10 feet high.
Yeah.
So I would.
Oh,
if you're
no,
kicking,
yeah.
If you're kicking, there's a little momentum there.
Yeah.
You just landed back down.
Yeah. This is gonna be on camera someday. I swear.
When you were younger, you played football and you played judo a little bit.
Yeah.
Is there any world where you feel like there was another sport you ever could have played professionally?
Yeah. Especially, like, I really actually love to play football. I was a goalkeeper back then, but not only goalkeeper, I like to play every position. But yeah, I wish I could have played. I wish I could have many careers in my life and just play other sports sometimes. With football, yeah, this is the sport I love most.
So, amidst the sort of whirlwind of the last, call it year or two, your season just ending, arriving in New York yesterday, 2 days away from the draft. I don't know how much time you've really thought about Thursday night, but I'm assuming there's a high level of anticipation there. Have you thought at all about what that moment when you hear your name, when it's official, what that is sort of going to mean to you?
Yeah. When you think about, when you dream and you think about something so precise for so many years, it almost feels real, and it feels like you can touch it. But so it's really so important to me, and it's gonna be the moment it happens, it's gonna be like a dream. Yeah.
I don't know what your status is for Summer League, but there's been some discourse and discussion in the NBA Twitter world about how many games you're going to play next year. And obviously, Tommy brought it up. didn't miss a game this season. I brought it up. A lot of guys would have shut it down after Vegas. And in some ways, you're going to the organization that invented load management.
Really?
Yeah, they pretty much did. I mean, they used to get in trouble. They used to get in trouble because they would have like back-to-backs and they'd get a TNT nationally televised game, and Pop would tell Manu and Tim to go back to San Antonio, and then they'd show up and Patty Mills would drop 38, So have you sort of thought at all or had discussions with San Antonio just about like what the expectation is for availability?
I haven't talked about anything like this, but I'm gonna play the most games. I know most players, most important players, they rest like 5 to 10 games a year maybe. I don't know. I'm just glad to be here. I'm still curious to know how it works over there. Right now I don't know anything, man. I don't know anything about how it works in the NBA. So I'm gonna stay humble and curious and just wait and learn as much as I can.
What are you most?
Hey everybody, welcome back. We are now live on The Sweat, and we're bringing in Julian Edlow because we have a few more questions about tonight's draft, and I believe this is the last day Jules will be working until he takes a 7-week vacation.
Yeah, he's going on paternity
there's
leave.
Still tomorrow. I work summer Fridays. I grind.
Okay.
Well, that makes one of us.
We
Besides
want
the
your
next 7 weeks.
Okay,
I grind.
okay, Julian.
Yeah, you're a grinder,
No,
all
okay,
right.
we have like 3 minutes left. We're supposed to be rushing. All right.
That's rough.
Jeez, Julian, need to get your take on the Celtics Porzingis drama that went down. So the title odds. Plus 550 for the Celtics before the Porzingis news, plus 500 with the rumors floating around, and now they're at plus 475. How do you feel about the trade? Did the Celtics do an amazing job? And what do you think about the title odds changing there?
All right, I know we're rushing, so just give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. Nick, Jeff, did they like or dislike?
So Jeff liked it, Nick liked it, Chinmay was emotional.
Yeah.
All right, well, Chinmay's not a Celtics guy. The other guys are. I like it. I would have much preferred it be Malcolm Brogdon as it was initially supposed to be, but obviously there's injury concerns there. Marcus Smart was a great piece, but time for some turnover. Porzingis is a huge talent upgrade and fills a position of need. He shot 38.5% from three last year. He rebounds the ball, he blocks shots, and he ranked 4th in the NBA in pick and roll defense last season. Al Horford got cooked in pick and roll defense during the postseason by Trae Young, by James Harden, by Jimmy Butler. I think that upgrade on the defensive side of the ball might be getting overlooked by Porzingis' offense. Health is going to be a huge concern for the Celtics. I cannot bet them right now to win the East or win it all. They should become larger or slightly shorter favorites because of the talent upgrade, but I cannot bet them right now because Porzingis, Brogdon, Rob Williams, Horford, who's going to be healthy for that postseason run? Once we get there, then sure, I can start to look at that. So I think a lot more is going to happen for this Celtics roster before it's finalized in October. But I like the talent upgrade, even though it was supposed to be Brogdon. Push came to shove. Brad Stevens said we need to unclog the backcourt and upgrade talent, fill a position of need with Porzingis, and they'll go from here.
All right, dude, let's talk about the movement on the number 2 overall pick. It's been pretty wild. What's the latest? What do you think ultimately will happen here?
Ultimately, I do believe that it's going to be Brandon Miller, but we're on the move again. So, it's gone all over the place. Then Brandon Miller kind of separated as a minus 500 favorite as of this morning at 8 a.m. when I was on VSiN. Now it's leveled off at minus 255, Brandon Miller, plus 150, Scoot Henderson. So it is still on the move, and I think the move is honestly just more mock drafts came out today that have Scoot, but people don't really know. If Woj in previous years had essentially tweeted that the Hornets are set on Brandon Miller after Monday's workout, this would have gone to minus 2,000. But people are still a little shook from the Jabari Smith, Paolo Banchero mix-up at the top of last year's draft and Woj essentially being lied to. So I can't bet it at this point. If anything, you have Miller at a good price and you're hedging off with some plus money Scoot. But I think if you're asking me who the pick is, I think it's Miller.
All right, Jules, what's the best draft bet still on the board for tonight?
So the best draft bets, there's nothing that great. I think, we're getting a lot of steam on the Thompson twins, both going in the top 5. Asar was supposed to go out of the top 5. He's now cracked in. Well, if he's going to go 5, then how does Jarris Walker fit in the top 6? Because Orlando is probably looking backcourt or wing. So Jarris Walker over 6.5 is probably my favorite play on the board that's not all steamed up. I think Derek Lively could crack the top 10. That's at plus 175. And then some first round darts. Guys like Trace Jackson Davis plus 300, Amari Bailey plus 500. I think those guys could sneak into the top 32.
All right, Jules. Good stuff, dude. Enjoy the draft tonight. Enjoy working tomorrow on a summer Friday before your long vacation. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with us. We are back tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock Eastern time for a Friday edition, a summer Friday edition of the